that the Liver King.
He preaches the ancestral primal way of living.
People are like super into his diet and his lifestyle.
He's also amassed critics who question just how natural Liver King's body really is.
You ran a con game and you got busted.
I don't know if you've been on Twitter lately, but they're getting pretty desperate for advertisers over there. Ever since the exploding car salesman took control, the app has seen a considerable downgrade in quality, to the point where bots now lurk in the replies of pretty much every single post, verified users get preferential treatment, and ads like these are becoming increasingly common. Now look, I'm not sure if you've heard of the Liver King, but I don't envy anyone who learned about him through these kinds of jarring promotional tweets talking about the smell and consistency of his own feces. I mean, if the shockingly low interaction to impression ratio doesn't say enough already, you can tell by the replies that people are a little confused at why this guy is even on their timeline to begin with. And I don't blame them. Who is this beet red amalgamation of veins and arteries in front of me, and why is he paying money to tell me about his poops?
I understand that you don't wipe your asshole. Is that true?
Most of the time, that's true.
Your are just really like...
They're crispy.
Well, there's a little bit of a backstory to that. It's not for the faint of heart or stomach, considering the Liver King garners some of the most visceral reactions I've ever seen for a health and fitness influencer. Whether it's the freshly skinned corpse he drapes over his head during interviews with ABC journalists, the Christmas tree of raw organs he proudly displays during the holidays, or this absolute abomination of mismatched animal parts uncharitably sewn together by his own personal psychopath of a chef, no one can deny the Liver King is a sight to behold. But how exactly he went from being one of the most popular up-and-coming names in the fitness community to desperately having to buy ad space on Twitter as a last-ditch resort to cling onto any sort of relevance in the wake of his whole facade being exposed is what I'd like to focus on today. Because believe it or not, these horrific tweets barely scratch the surface of who this man is and what he represents. It's a wild ride. Join me in documenting the thunderous rise and calamitous fall of the Liver King. But before any of that ruins your appetite, because let's be honest, you're probably eating while watching this, I want to take a brief moment here to thank today's sponsor, the good people over at Aura. Whether we like it or not, data brokers are out there willing to sell your information to scammers, spammers, and anyone who may want to target you. Aura works to track down these shady data brokers and can submit opt-out requests on your behalf, reducing the amount of spam you get and protecting you from the threat of hackers who may want to use that information to breach your accounts. After all, data brokers are legally required to remove your information if you ask them, they just make it maddeningly difficult. Let Aura do all the hard work so you can focus on the important stuff, like, oh, I don't know, schlepping around your 500-acre ranch in the sweltering Texas heat, or chowing down on uncooked organs. Okay, maybe you're not doing that, but you'll definitely have more time on your hands. Aura is super easy to set up, so you only need one account to access features like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and so much more. You can get it all at one affordable price when you click the link down below, or go to aura.com/jobbery for a 14-day free trial to see how much of your information is already being sold. Huge thanks again to Aura for sponsoring this video and giving us all peace of mind. So when it comes to the Liver King's origins, we gotta take a lot of this stuff with a grain of salt, because sure, he does have a very robust biography of himself listed on his website where he weirdly fades in and out of using third person. That much is true, but it's also true that he's an unabashed prolific liar and has had much of his online image artificially propped up by a nice little marketing firm, which we will be exploring later. What we know for sure is that the Liver King was once just a regular 5'7" corporate guy from Texas, born Brian Johnson Johnson on April 7th, 1977, on a naval air base in Puerto Rico. He and his older brother were raised by a tough single mother in Austin after the early death of his father. As a result, Brian never really had much of a father figure growing up, and says he found himself on the receiving end of bullies all throughout his childhood. Sick of being called a little Brian at school, he eventually decided that, according to the lore, he was going to make himself big and intimidating, working on his physical prowess starting all the way back in 8th grade. Brian cites one particular instance of him manhandling a bully as a sort of rite of passage into this new life. Brian was determined to force those who doubted him into submission and create a better life for himself while doing it. By high school, he claims he could bench press 315 pounds and was picking up chicks left and right, even letting us in on his strategy with this hypothetical interaction that I'm sure is real and worked all of the time.
Hey, my name is Brian. I have a six-pack. What's your name?
I have a boyfriend.
All good? What's his name?
Not interested.
Could you tell me where I went wrong?
I don't even know you.
Again, my name is Brian. I'm funny, I'm confident, I go after what I want. I stand firm for what I believe. And did I mention I have a six-pack?
Showing it? Okay, but I have a boyfriend.
At least tell me your name.
Dude, this is a fake conversation and you're making yourself sound so desperate. Why did you put this on here? But hey, he's also got something on here about a pickup course that I think he's gonna be starting soon. I'm not really sure what this means. It's pretty vague, but I'll be on the lookout for it. By the end of college, Brian opted not to pursue medical school and instead threw himself headfirst into the corporate jungle to start making money as a pharmaceutical rep at Eli Lilly. This is where he would also continue his hobby of, again, picking up chicks, detailing all the subtle ways in which he'd go about doing it. But I'm more interested in what happened after he met his wife, Barbara, his liver queen, as he so lovingly dubbed her.
Valentine's Day is about spending time with the people that you love most. There's no people that I love most more than my liver queen. Eat your heart out.
Because that's when the two became entrepreneurs, even buying their own dental practice and getting married. To be more specific, according to ABC News, Barbara worked as the dentist and Brian owned a stake in the business and property. So, as others have pointed out, I guess his newfound distrust of doctors developed after he and his wife were making six figures from their medical dentistry.
You know, I don't go see doctors.
You don't believe in doctors.
Here's what happens. You go see a doctor, they're going to tell you what's wrong with you, irrespective of you being as healthy as an ox.
Do you use toothpaste?
No. Our early ancestors didn't brush, didn't floss,
Do you brush?
didn't get cavities.
Do you brush?
I don't use toothpaste, I don't brush, I don't floss.
You don't even deal with the mouth.
And I don't get cavities.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Together, their fortunes exploded, with Brian and Barbara each founding a number of different health and wellness companies throughout the 2010s, including Crowa Beauty, the Fittest Food Supplements, Heart and Soil Supplements, and Ancestral Supplements. As he told GQ in 2022, these were bringing in a staggering $100 million in annual profits, giving rise to the Johnson family empire, and assigning Brian a personal net worth of over $300 million. Maybe. That's according to him. Some have speculated those numbers might be a lot lower in actuality. Brian is definitely rich. He's made that clear as fucking day. And if the supplement industry is one thing, it's profitable. But the legitimacy of these profits continue to be debated within the fitness community because it requires us to take Brian's word at face value. And at this point, I don't know why anyone would do that.
I'm curious how all your businesses were doing before Liver King, and then with Liver King growing, how that has affected all of your businesses.
You know what's wild? Hardly at all. Hardly at all.
One thing that Brian likes to claim is that his social media presence has little to no bearing on his personal net worth. In fact, at the height of his popularity in 2022, he told BuzzFeed he didn't know what a TikTok creator, influencer, or meme even was, making it seem as though being an influencer was never a part of the plan for him.
Enough people came over and said, you need to go on social media. And I was like, well, you know what? We always called it anti-social media. I said 6 months. I'll do this for 6 months. If I don't have 1 million followers in 6 months, I'm not doing this.
And I never expected this kind of exposure in the public eye.
Except, as leaked emails would later reveal, Brian was in fact pouring ridiculous resources into reaching his follower goals behind the scenes from as early as summer 2021, before he had even posted his first TikTok, hiring a video guy to live in his house and an additional camera crew to film him 7 times a month in his own words. He clearly understood the need to become a public figure, a mascot to win over the hearts and wallets of millions of paying customers. So how exactly did that manifest? Now, when you get past the initial shock of an unwashed, shirtless Viking man scarfing down raw bull testicles and trying not to have a heart attack whilst dragging massive amounts of weights behind his back, it becomes pretty clear what the Liver King is all about. Preaching that pure, simplistic, ancestral lifestyle that early humans were famous for. That's what Liver King prides himself on. We're all familiar with the age-old ancestral ritual of laying down in the hyperbaric chamber to heal a ripped bicep tendon, or maybe you've heard of the ancient practice of resting in a red light tanning bed after working out with $30,000 worth of equipment in a massive home gym, of course. You know, caveman stuff. Living off the land. What better way to connect with nature than by destroying it with a fucking flamethrower, right? He's a man who wears his values on his non-existent sleeve, warning us all of the inherent dangers present in modern technology like Wi-Fi and cell phones.
It says cell phone reception goes here, and by here, that really means this Faraday cage is going to make sure to block all the EMFs from the phone so we can maintain this healthy, pristine environment that we created that's EMF free.
While also fully understanding that without those things, he would have no way of showing us his sick hunting skills, which are also incredibly real and praiseworthy. I'm curious which ancient tribes used to trap their prey behind a fence before blasting it in what looks to be the stomach with a high-powered rifle.
One for my oldest, one for my youngest.
Brother, why are you wearing a ghillie suit in your own backyard? Sorry, I know, it is pretty impressive. Who else do you know that can spear a fish to death without noticeably piercing its skin or dirtying the blade at all? Wonder how he did that. You too can achieve all of this and more when you follow the 9 ancestral tenets.
So the 9 ancestral tenets are these forces that have nourished us and shaped us to epigenetically express our highest and most dominant form.
The 9 ancestral tenets are pretty alright. I mean, they're fine. You can't really argue with most of them. Everyone knows sleep is important and eating healthy is good. You should take risks and get plenty of sun, bond with the people around you. I mean, it's not bad advice by any means, but it's also pretty generic advice. If you don't have your life together, I doubt the Liver King is going to be the one to give you that wake-up call. For the first year or so, Brian wanted you to believe he achieved this unrealistic, godlike physique through a strict primal lifestyle, which is where all the raw food comes into play, as if humans haven't been cooking their meat for, oh, I don't know, 780,000 years now? If there's something ancestral about downing an entire pound of uncooked liver on a daily basis, I haven't seen any indication of it. Not only is that an amount of vitamin A that could literally kill you if truly ingested every single day, as he claims, but many experts doubt that's what our ancestors were truly putting in their bodies on such a regular basis anyway. And I don't think I need to recite the laundry list of health concerns that come with consuming any flavor of uncooked meat. Yet, Brian has made his supposed diet a central point of his content and online image. It's pretty much what his persona revolves around. I mean, it's literally his name. The idea, from a business perspective, is for the Liver King to show everyone what your body could look like if you just followed his lifestyle and diet. But because most people aren't going to chow down on raw liver for breakfast every day, he makes it easy for you to still get those same nutrients by selling you his supplements.
If you want to be a top king, if you want unlimited access to cars, money, and if you want to find your queen, then you have to fuel your efforts with ancestral supplements, liver, beef organs, and bone marrow with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because liver is king.
If you can only choose one dietary supplement and you're not going to eat raw liver, make it Ancestral Supplements beef liver.
He needs to get these gross out reactions in order for the business model to work.
You are a fucking bitch. Give me that nut.
You are not of my line.
Give me that nut.
He said, give me that nut, dude. You didn't even chew, you didn't even taste it.
Oh, that does not taste good.
Oh. Oh. Should I be concerned there was no ice in the box?
But it isn't just him, mind you. According to Brian, this is a lifestyle that his wife and his 2 boys, Striker and Rad, yes, he named them gamer tags, are all happy to follow as well. In fact, if you ask Brian, it was his son's health scare that led he and his wife to discover this lifestyle in the first place.
My boys were taking ambulance trips to the hospital because they stopped breathing. They turned blue. They needed EpiPen shots. They would take ambulance trips to the hospital and then stay in the hospital because they didn't recover their breathing. How long are you going to put up with that? As a good cave dad that really loves your guys, we got just tired of the same answers. It was just more Benadryl, more bullshit EpiPen, and stay away from dust, stay away from grass, stay away from pollutants in the air. So it's like, what do you want, to happen? So you keep looking for solutions. And finally, we found ancestral living.
Brian's family is very much a part of his content, making them the first family vlog channel to eat raw organs on camera, I'm pretty sure.
Primals want to know if the liver boys eat just like Liver King. Well, here's your answer. Liver King, out.
That's YouTube history right there. I mean, imagine the conversation leading up to this. Hey, Striker and Rad, you want to make an Instagram video with me? Oh, yeah, sure, Dad. What do you want us to do? Oh, I want you to eat something. Whoa, what are we eating? Oh God. We talk a lot on this channel about influencer parents who force a lifestyle of clickbaiting and clout chasing onto their kids, but Brian takes it to another level. He's not just filming his kids' normal lives, he's making them active participants in this stupid primal LARPing shtick he needs to maintain. Like, man, just let your kids be normal. You can do all the dumb shit you want on camera, but just don't loop them into this. What about your wife? I mean, just look at her face whenever you're making her pretend to eat raw organs for your ridiculous brand.
Hey, Queen.
Hey.
I love you.
Love you.
You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Liver King.
Liver Queen.
Out.
This mukbang, for example, is an uncomfortable watch, not just because of the animal head that still has its eyes, but also because the conversation feels so cold and forced. They all look thrilled.
It's time! Let's see. Where we starting, guys?
I think these.
When you see this piece of bread, are you jealous? You want it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't have it. Mm-hmm. What was your workout today?
Some cleans, T-bar rows.
Power cleans?
Yeah.
So what was the emphasis today?
I think arms, biceps mostly.
Back and buys.
Mm.
Today was a pulling day. And we just back and buys today.
Alright.
You guys want any of this brain, or you have enough of your own?
Also, I'm sorry, but $300 million net worth and you can't even pay for a decent fucking boom mic? The background noise is almost as loud as the talking.
You know, it's funny. We're still getting tons of people on social that are like, oh, they don't eat that way. I doubt they eat that way. And we already have plenty of mukbangs that show that, you know, where I'm eating stuff. But it's like, what do people think we're doing with all this food?
Mm-hmm.
That we just make these videos for show?
Yeah. Okay.
Here, Liver. Some brain.
I think it's sad that pretty much the only thing they talk about here as a family has to do with either working out or eating animal brains, which is fine, but there should be more to discuss around the dinner table than just, yeah, guys, isn't it crazy that we really do eat all of this food ourselves daily? I mean, you know, what else would we do, right? I mean, we eat it. It's something we do because, of course, we eat it, you know, all of it, because we're primals. And trust me, I'm not the only one who picked up on this. Brian's own comments are littered with people saying he's holding his family hostage. I mean, if these are the kinds of comments you're getting on your own channel, it's probably time to do some reevaluating. As the Liver King's popularity ballooned through 2021 and into 2022, he was making appearances everywhere, going on just about every podcast known to man, taking exotic trips all around the world.
Yeah, I'm the Liver King. Don't forget that. I'm coming for you. That's right.
Being featured in articles for GQ and BuzzFeed, garnering national attention with alternating dumbbell curls in front of Buckingham Palace.
I'm here, the Liver King.
During this time, Brian suddenly became pretty hard to ignore. His ancestral lifestyle had the entire internet by the balls, and I'm not just talking about the ones he would shove in his mouth.
Primals! We're gonna see how many people we can trick into eating testicles so that we can increase the total testosterone for the entire savage city of Houston.
But the closer he got to becoming a household name, the closer his secret came to being blown wide open. See, beneath the carefully crafted image Brian had become known for, there had always been murmurs of the Liver King hiding something very damning from his audience, something that could irreversibly tarnish his credibility. And those murmurs weren't getting any quieter.
Have you seen that bloke that eats just the raw.
Yeah, that's a gimmick, that guy.
It just looks ridiculous. He's got a
something.
plate of hearts and it just looks weird.
He's got an ass filled with steroids is what he's got.
Yeah, he should have a big plate of steroids next to it.
That is not a natural body.
Of course it's not.
That guy is shooting all kinds of shit into his system to achieve that kind of physique.
Completely.
Unless you've been listening to this entire video and haven't gotten the chance to actually gaze upon the Liver King's gladiator build for more than 2 seconds, you've probably already gathered that this guy is on a shit ton of gear. An ass full of steroids, as delicately put by modern day philosopher Joe Rogan. Rogan was one of Brian's earliest critics. From the second he started getting attention, he was there to call it out and cast doubt on the man's repeated claims of being all natty, a term that refers to anyone who isn't pumped to the gills with juice. And it's not that Brian would just avoid addressing these allegations, he would confront them head on, going out of his way to assure any and all doubters that his body was the natural result of 35 years of hard work, a good diet, and testicle sunning, or whatever else he likes to do.
If you sun your balls, there is a study, it's an older study, I think it's from like the 50s or 60s, that shows that it does improve androgens, not necessarily testosterone, but some of the androgens either upstream or downstream from testosterone. I think it's pretty fucking primal. For the record, I've never taken steroids.
I don't touch this stuff. I've never done this stuff. I'm not gonna do this stuff.
I don't touch this stuff.
I'd heard Rogan say you were on steroids.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
You think if I was on steroids, I would have these fucking appendages down here, these legs?
Have legs?
Do you see how fucking little my fucking legs are?
Never taken steroids. I've never done PEDs other than prioritize, execute, and dominate in life.
So this is what I say to people that make this accusation. If you don't believe this is possible, then I suggest that you take that self-limiting belief, you put that in a fucking box and you bury that next to all your embarrassing shit. Don't open your fucking mouth about it. Let that live with you. Don't let that live with somebody else. Because the highest and most dominant form that we have to express is in front of us. Okay, we did find something unusual about your blood.
Aha! I knew it! Primal! Primal!
Perhaps Brian's biggest misstep of all was believing he could successfully swindle his fans into buying this narrative in the hopes that they would then go on to buy more of his products, when in reality, total transparency from the start probably would have helped him out a lot more in the long run. It would ultimately be less catastrophic to his brand to hear the truth straight from the Liver King's own mouth rather than from a massive expose made by someone else in the fitness community, which is exactly what ended up happening.
Leaked emails, blood test results, and a full steroid cycle breakdown. That's what we're going to be getting into in this video, and it is shocking to say the least.
Turns out Derek of the More Plates, More Dates YouTube channel actually held some crucial insight into the Liver King's real lifestyle and diet that the public hadn't been made aware of. See, way before Brian became a social media juggernaut in his own right, he was struggling to reach out to already established creators in the online fitness world, including Derek, who he once tried to recruit as a coach, firing off an email that would later be made public in Derek's viral expose, The Liver King Lie, the following year in November 2022. Derek had criticized Brian in the past, but this was finally some tangible proof of the claims that had long polluted Brian's image. This email was the smoking gun. Under a subject line ironically marked confidentiality, Brian wrote, "I've been working out for 35 years, but as I've reached my mid-40s, it's getting harder, and the back fat kills me. To support these exhaustive efforts, I've recently started taking Omnitrope, the 5.8 milligram vials from Empower Pharmacy, for my new dose, which is 4 vials per week, 16 vials a month. My doctor told me I could double it. I'm wondering if taking a fuckload of other peptides, it could be confounding the results and possibly interfering with efficacy. For instance, here's what I'm currently taking." Before going on to quite plainly list out all the various steroids he was taking, while at the same time blatantly lying in the face of anyone who would mildly express doubt. It was an incredibly bold and risky idea to assume that no one would ever catch on to this lie, especially when emails like these were just sitting in Derek's inbox waiting to be pushed out into the world. I mean, imagine how those who had started his diet reacted. Take for example a guy by the name of Joe Loney, who just wanted to improve his own personal health and resorted to ingesting a daily steak so rare it was almost raw, taking a break only every 2 to 3 months. As Loney told Bloomberg, "I felt betrayed. I probably made at least 10 or 20 comments on Brian's videos saying, 'When are you gonna stop doing steroids?' steroids after the expose. It's important to emphasize that there were real people who were looking at Brian as someone with plenty of credibility, because that's who Brian had deliberately made himself out to be. Someone who had it all figured out. A guru that you could rely on for good quality fitness advice. When behind closed doors, Brian was shooting up over $10,000 worth of steroids, which probably does a little more for his body than drinking full glasses of blood, but what do I know? It was all a grift, and a dangerous one at that.
That is going to be 69.6 international units of recombinant human growth hormone per week, which is roughly 10 international units per day, which is like a fucking really, really high, super expensive dosage that, to be honest, I know bodybuilders who compete at the Open Mr. Olympia who use less pharma grade GH than that. Like that's how high of a dose that actually is.
Derek had finally brought all of this to the forefront. The Liver King was now being rightfully lampooned by the entire internet. Good thing Brian had a fire response of his own, locked and loaded. Amidst the chaos of his public reputation going up in flames, Brian took to his YouTube channel to address the scandal in a 6-minute video where he remains shirtless in character the entire time.
Primals.
I mean, you would kind of expect him to drop the shtick for maybe 5 minutes when he's discussing such serious claims, right? Especially when he isn't denying them. This video is not a rebuttal of the evidence Derek brought forward, it's a full-on admission. After being given endless opportunities to come forward about his steroid use in the past, Brian correctly assessed that he could not squirm his way out of this one, which to me makes this even more disingenuous. This is a textbook case of, oh, you're not sorry for lying, you're sorry you got caught. While some of his diehard fans considered this transparency admirable, the general consensus was still pretty negative, as evident by almost 250,000 dislikes as of today. And if you actually watch the full video, it's not shocking to see why that is.
I'm making this video to apologize.
Oh yeah, he also fucked up the audio so it only goes through the left side. Let me just fix that for you now. Wow, that was easy, and I don't even have $300 million.
Because I fucked up. Because I'm embarrassed and ashamed. Because I lied. And I misled a lot of people.
Brian starts by admitting that he messed up and stating that, to be fair, it is a
complicated as fuck topic,
which is hard for me to understand personally. The question, are you on steroids, should warrant a pretty uncomplicated answer, especially when your physique is the primary selling point of your brand.
Before social media, I was rich and anonymous, and after social media, I'm still rich, but no longer anonymous.
Pretty subtle flex there, well done, Brian.
And I never expected this kind of exposure in the public eye. It's been tricky as fuck to navigate. Well, clearly I did it wrong.
Once again, I don't understand how he couldn't expect this level of attention when he was actively using 1DS marketing to craft a public profile from the jump. You were absolutely expecting the attention. You were asking for it.
Yes, I've done steroids. And yes, I am on steroids, monitored and managed by a trained hormone clinician. Liver King, the public figure, was an experiment to spread the message, to bring awareness.
Very true, Brian. I'm glad you can admit to that at least. Wait, spread awareness? What are we spreading awareness for?
To the 4,000 people a day who kill themselves, the 80,000 people a day that try to kill themselves. Our people are hurting at record rates with depression, autoimmune, anxiety, infertility, low ambition.
Okay, we're barely 1 minute in, and already we're in the what the fuck territory. What the fuck do you mean you lied about taking steroids for suicide awareness? Am I hearing that correctly? When has that ever been the justification for lying about steroid usage? It doesn't even make tangible sense outside of just trying to make him look noble on the surface. Brian implied to a shocking number of people that they too could look like him if they followed his lifestyle, which did not include steroids. As he repeatedly assured us, his expertise was in selling false hope. How does that in any way raise awareness for suicide prevention? If anything, reinforcing unrealistic male body standards without being transparent about your steroid use adds to the epidemic you're claiming to oppose. It's a deflection. Is not a justification for anything.
When I talk about the 85% of the population that suffers from self-esteem issues, that's me. This is why I fucking work myself to death in the gym. This is why I do 12 to 15 blood-burning workouts a week, just to feel like I'm okay. Still, I have to absolutely crush myself to do so, and I'm wrecked physically and cognitively, and hormone replacement has helped in a profound and significant way.
Brian's ultimate motivation for lying is due to his deep-rooted self-esteem issues, as he claims. And that part I actually do believe. That, I'm sure, isn't the only incentive for him to lie. But Brian's admitted insecurity surrounding back fat, for instance, is something we see him talking about in the leaked emails. I'm sure that's in part what drove him to dig such a deep hole for himself, but at the same time, it's far from an excuse. He's not just some random person off the street whose body has no impact on his business. His body is the business. So you can see why that would become a massive liability, which it did when he was slammed with a massive class action lawsuit for misleading customers. Not the most surprising outcome in the world when you're as reckless as Brian, but lucky for him, it has since been discontinued by the man who originally filed for reasons that are currently unknown.
The conversation with my kids was almost identical to the apology video because, I told them that I lied to them. And, man.
Were they like, why the fuck would we even eat all this liver bull? Some goddamn Skittles or something like that. This is disgusting. I'm dying. Why am I eating bone marrow? Give me a hamburger.
At the end of the conversation, they said that they're not eating liver or testicles that day.
We're boycotting balls today, Dad.
The Liver King does discuss his legal matters on his website, though, where he strangely appears to backtrack on that whole I misled my audience thing by writing, I will gladly own up to the fact that I influenced millions, and I couldn't be more proud. Only problem is, it was never a guy's. I can't wait to hear this one. When I read things like Liver King persuaded millions, deceptive business practices, and misleading consumers nationwide, I'm like, do you know how bad the world is hurting right now? Before going on to list a bunch of random percentages about how much people struggle with their finances and weight. But you may notice he doesn't actually explain how he didn't deceive people. It's basically just word soup that I can only liken to this classic tweet. If I misled my audience, I didn't mislead them because I did. No, I didn't. This is my job, to model, teach, and preach the 9 ancestral tenets so we can collectively express our highest and most dominant form. Did I persuade millions? I hope so. Did I mislead customers nationwide? Not if they're on the liver train and living the ancestral lifestyle. Okay, but you repeatedly claimed you weren't on steroids, right? I mean, that's the whole point of why people are calling you a liar. You said you lied. I don't know what the point of this paragraph even is. Did I conflate the Liver King's $500 million net worth? What? I think he said 300. Not if net worth is direct reflection of self-worth. Okay, I'm sick of this. How much money do you have, Brian? Show us. Show me your bank account. Actually, you know what? Just give me your bank account while you're at it. Who would have thought rules must be followed? After all, rules are what separates us from animals. Only problem is, Liver King is an animal. I don't know if the court is gonna listen to that. Brian may not care about wasting mental energy on meaningless legal cases as much as he cares about maintaining a six-pack, which, to be fair, he does say is crucial for winning lawsuits. But the fact is, Brian's reputation was at its lowest point, even after this apology video, if you can call it that. He tried to continue posting as normal, but people weren't having it. If he wanted to move on with a fraction of the audience he had cultivated, he needed to make it up to them. But how?
I believe so deeply in this message and the 9 ancestral tenets and the ancestral living. To answer your question, yes.
You would go natty.
Yes.
So are you going natty? That's it?
Yes.
Now, don't do one of them things where you say it on a podcast.
I'm done with that. I've learned from this. The thing that I've learned from this is I'm not doing this again. Forget that. Now I got this responsibility, this obligation. There's so many silver linings in it. Do you know how much better this will be for my health?
Yeah, the worst thing for primal lifestyle is dying at 50.
This at first may sound like a flippant comment tossed out in the midst of a casual conversation, but within the same week he got exposed, Brian made it clear he was going to finally renounce his steroid usage and turn to a new life of becoming all natty. He was determined to get there, if not for the sake of his audience, then for the sake of his own health. But that begged another question. What if his appearance began to change so dramatically that it interfered with his brand?
If you go natural though, because your image is tied to your brand, and so what if the cuts start going away and things like that, and you don't look as good?
How's it gonna
Are you worried about your brand at all?
No, not at all. Again, this is so much more important than me and my brand.
Brushing this off at the time, Brian wasn't about to concern himself with the what-if scenarios. He figured that from now on, he needed to be completely steroid-free and absolutely transparent with this new journey. And sure enough, for the next 8 months or so, he may have looked marginally less bloated from some angles, but overall, he looked and acted significantly older. His bubble gut was still popping out, and his skin seemed to be radiating an even more vibrant red than before, if that were even possible. To those who had stopped watching The Liver King back in December December and were only just now tuning back in to see what exactly he had been up to, this was a pretty grim sight.
In the modern world, we like to have our bowl of cereal, don't we? This is a primal version of your bowl of cereal. I got my testicles in farm fresh milk from Liver King Ranch. The most feared warriors, the Maasai. What they get down on is milk, meat, and blood. And they're expressed in a higher, more dominant form. If you still want your primal cereal to taste like Cocoa Pebbles at the end, put a little bit of whole yeast in with your testicles. Make sure you peel back the membrane on the testicle. You can use a spoon if you want, but God gave you the hands for a reason. And go to town.
He's looking extremely rough, so I just wanted to do a little checkup on where Liver King is 8 months post-exposing.
In September of last year, Moist Critical made a video basically stating out loud what everybody was kinda already thinking, pointing out how increasingly unsettling Brian's appearance was becoming, even going so far as to argue he was back on the roids.
He is still doing the exact same thing, but he looks a lot worse now because I really feel like he is only amplifying his gear usage.
In fact, maybe he was using more than before. This garnered yet another response from Brian, where he admits that yes, he is back on the gear, and if only Charlie had been paying more attention, he would have known that too. It's been on his website.
Moist Critical, you're late to the party. All you had to do was go to liverking.com. All of it's there, all of it.
Never mind the fact that I have no idea who actively checks and reads through the endless walls of text that make up Liver King's god-awful website other than myself, because I'm an insane person.
I went 220 days without any steroid, without any growth hormone, without any peptide, without anything synthetic. If you call eating a pound of fresh, raw bull testicles every single day natural, then I've been natty as fuck for 220 days.
I will give Brian slight credit for at least attempting transparency here, though hard evidence in the form of blood work would have helped even more, so people could see when exactly he got off versus when he got back on. Either way, he's admitting to being back on the steroids now, I guess, despite the health benefits of quitting that he expressed to Andrew Schultz some months earlier.
I don't like the idea of losing over 20 pounds of muscle. I don't like the idea that became the reality of losing a lot of strength. My 1 rep max strict press was like 255, and I couldn't even hit 205 in July. So I've decided to go back on it.
He didn't want to lose a ton of muscle, you know, whatever. But as bodybuilding coach and fellow fitness YouTuber Greg Douchette asserted, Brian could have gone about this detox in a much safer way had he weaned off of it with the help of a doctor rather than just going cold turkey. He could have taken HRT from the jump to maintain his muscle mass, as Greg insists that cutting such a massive dose of steroids out of your routine so abruptly would have caused Brian's metabolism to drop significantly. He wouldn't be looking leaner, as Brian claims. Instead, we would be seeing his energy level and libido dropping like a bag of bull testicles. Something that, as Greg points out, Brian failed to mention during his 200 some odd days of being natty, leading Greg to assume that maybe Brian never got off the stuff.
The Liver King state that he did not take anything. He didn't do a PCT, didn't go to a doctor and come off properly. He just decided to go cold turkey for 220 days. And I can tell you this, I don't buy it.
So what happened when he went off of steroids?
Who knows if he did, dude? Said he did. I didn't see any blood work proof.
I don't see it. I don't believe it. I mean, as he's sitting here on this chair, shirtless, with veins popping out everywhere, does he actually think that he lost 24 pounds of muscle?
And as emphasized by both Greg and Derek, a few simple blood tests could have put all the rumors to bed right then and there. But at least we know what he's taking right now, and we also know why he looks so red.
So why is Liver King so red? Part of it might be because I like to bathe in blood.
Yeah, the mental image of the Liver King emerging out of a vat of blood is something I will have nightmares about. Brian also says to Charlie that he isn't playing a character. This is how he really lives, even if he occasionally indulges in the same modern technologies he warns us all to stay away from. But Brian still went on to produce some of his most shocking and vile content ever in 2023. Considering everyone now knew he was back on the steroids, Brian needed to give his viewers a reason to keep tuning in. The mystique of his lifestyle is kinda gone, as reflected in the comment section, which is nowadays flooded with former fans expressing disdain for the man they were once enthralled by, sometimes announcing their decision to unfollow altogether, which is fair. I can't think of a lot of people who would willingly want to see a man eat after his dogs on the timeline.
You get free.
You get a treat. No, you gotta share with your dad. You get a treat. But don't take all of it. We're still sharing. You get a treat. You can have half. You can have only half. Because the other half is for me. You could chew on it. Mine.
This is a guy who goes after vegans on the daily, by the way. I would rather be vegan than have to chow down after my fucking dog, dude. What are you doing? I shudder at the thought of what his beard must smell like. In this clip, keen-eyed viewers might notice the literal flies crawling around the head he's ingesting. These later videos are truly like watching a midlife crisis happen in real time. Even the dogs are looking at each other like, what the fuck, you seeing this shit?
When you know your why in the world, winning is a foregone conclusion. All you gotta do is sort the how and the what. That's the easy part.
Define your highest leverage roles.
Assign a profound why to each and fucking execute.
Who wants the first bite of the testicle sandwich?
Me.
That's what I call a primal picnic. Get down on that sandwich. How's it taste, Rad?
Like beef testicles.
That's why your name is Savage Liver Boy Rad and Striker the Barbarian. The rest of the sandwich goes to the king.
But the worst Liver King video I've ever seen is actually absent from his TikTok today. The only way I would have ever found this thing is thanks to fellow YouTuber Fillion, who managed to document it before either Brian or Instagram removed it. Even for the Liver King standards, this next part is gonna be a little rough to sit through.
If anyone's squeamish, we're gonna be talking about dead animals. And the only reason why I bring that up is because the footage relating to this video is insanely graphic and off-putting. To be honest, I don't even know if I can show you what I'm talking about, but in the event that that's the case, I'll blur it to the best of my ability.
For Halloween 2023, Brian's personal chef decided to have a little demented fun and sew together what I can only describe as an unholy behemoth of insidious proportions. Chef Lionel dove into the dark abyss of his own mind to conjure up an animal hybrid I'm convinced not even Noah himself would let onto the ark. This guy attached a dead bobcat head to an ostrich neck sewn onto the body of a goat with bobcat legs and pig feet. What even compels someone to come up with that? He slapped that monster on the same dinner table his family sits at. Imagine walking into the kitchen one day and seeing your dad shirtless, first of all, getting ready to consume a Frankenstein animal carcass on camera at the same table where you do your homework and eat your meals. I just don't fucking get it, man. Is the clout that good? Is it that worth it? How is anyone involved with the making of this thing enjoying any of it?
The comments read, "That's not how you honor your food. That's wrong. What the fuck? This is madness. Disrespect. In what country is consuming cats legal, bro? You've got a screw loose." This is some Jeffrey Dahmer type shit, okay? Who actually plays with animal carcasses and stitches them together for the sake of social media clout?
I mean, is it just me or have we lost the plot completely? I fail to see how any of this content helps the 80% of the population struggling with self-esteem issues. Liver King's identity has devolved into nothing more but pure shock value for the sake of shock value, because it's the only reason people will talk about him. If he were truly serious about his grandiose message, maybe he would actually try to demonstrate that. Otherwise, I don't see how him pretending to scarf down a raw meat smoothie is actually helping anyone in this equation achieve their full potential. What invites the Liver King to continue this shtick even when his audience is faltering and the people are no longer having it?
Look at what you can build. Look at what you can build. Look at what you can build. From warrior to barbarian. Barbarian into king. King into kingdom.
By this point, it's safe to say Brian has figuratively and literally dug his own grave. Being at a place where he feels the need to pay for millions of impressions that ultimately get him nowhere is the result of his own actions entirely. I'm of the mindset that Brian probably could have continued to exist and even flourish in the fitness community had he just been honest about the steroids from the start. Not everyone would have approved, of course, especially considering the amount he was taking, but at least he would have eliminated a huge portion of potential criticism right off off the bat. If you had just been upfront with how you were maintaining your physique, you wouldn't have run the risk of being labeled a fraud and a liar for the rest of your career. Brian will never manage to outrun these comments no matter how many Twitter ads he pays for. And he knows that, because the Liver King experiment was never intended as an honest venture in the first place. As we know by now, Brian's plan only extended as far as becoming the public mascot of ancestral lifestyle. His 9 tenets are of course a nice touch, but let's not pretend a multi-millionaire ex-pharmaceutical salesman is really out here trying to do anything other than grow his many businesses, employing unethical marketing strategies, and falling back on good old-fashioned gross-out content wherever necessary. Brian may think of himself as something of a guru, a motivator, dedicated to spreading an overall positive message, albeit a generic one. But in the process, he's managed to convince me, along with many others, that he's nothing more than a modern-day snake oil salesman. It's a pretty irritating business model, one that he may never officially retire until he runs out of ideas for the next revolting TikTok, unless they get rid of that too. In the meantime, we may just have to get used to seeing the Liver King clog up our Twitter feeds with his highly desirable poop posts.
This is a solemn place, an American place. The ultimate subprimal act was committed right here. Right now we stand as a family. We're gonna honor a moment of silence for those that went before us. Liver King, out. Yep, that be a testicle in my hand.